In this tutorial, we're going to begin task number 2, mortality. This is going to involve downloading 2 data sets, the infant mortality and life expectancy, and then we're going to clean up that spreadsheet that we make, which is actually considerably more difficult than doing the GDP one that we did for the first task. All right, so let's begin by going to Gapminder. We click on data, and this window's new and different, but I have to select my indicator, and I want infant mortality. There's popping up, infant mortality. So I click on that, and you can see this is the deaths of children during the first year of life per 1,000 births. So that's the description right there. That's helping you know what you're looking at. So you might need that later. So I'm going to click on that. I could click on a CSV file, like if I was going to copy and paste it into Google Spreadsheet, or I could use the XLSX file if I have an Excel, which I do. So I'm going to use that. Then I'm going to open it up. So it downloaded it, and then I'm going to open it up. There it is. I'm going to click on Enable Editing so I can edit it. And then I'm actually going to go do the same with the other indicator we want, which is life expectancy, if I'm not mistaken. So list of indicators, let me think, how do I want it in the new version? I could hit back with my back arrow and go back, or I could just click data again. That'll take me back to the window where I can choose. There we go. And then I can choose life expectancy. Only if I type it correctly. It was right there, life expectancy in years. So I'm going to click on that. And the data table is loading. It's going to take it a second. I'm sure it's a big data table. This will be the average number of years a newborn child would live if the current mortality patterns were the same. Excuse me. So again, I will click on the XLSX file. Oh, there's how you do it. If you click on this little arrow, then you can go back in right there. So let me open that file. Now I'm going to use the year 1960 again. So I need to enable editing. I need to get rid of all this other stuff. So I can do it for life expectancy, or I can do it for infant mortality, either one first. It doesn't make any difference. So I want to get rid of all the years I don't want. So I'm just highlighting all those columns. I moved my cursor up to the column labels, and I'm just dragging. Oops, I dragged too far. Uh-oh, going back. There's 1917, 1946. Oop, there it is, 1960. So if I right click and delete, I've gotten rid of all of the other years except for 1960. And now I'm going to go do it over here. So I move my cursor up to the little arrows for C, so it turns into a little arrow. I hold down my mouse button, I drag right, I keep going, there we go. Right click and delete. And now everything's gone except for my country and 1960. Okay, so that's life expectancy right there. So I think I want to label it that way. So this is country, and this is life expectancy. And I want to put my years, so in 1960. So I got to have it somewhere what year I had, because of course every student has their own year. So there's my country, there's my life expectancy. I'm actually going to make them bold, and I don't know, I'll highlight it in blue or something. Something fun with my little paint box up here. There we go. Now I can really see it. Okay, so that's life expectancy. Now I have to go back and do the same thing for infant mortality, which was a different spreadsheet. So I enabled editing on this. I'm going to highlight all the years I don't want again. And of course, you're going to highlight and get rid of all the years except for your year, and everybody has their own year. So for me in the videos, it's 1960, but for you, it could be, 1988 or whatever. And then you get rid of everything else. Right click and delete. And then again, I'm going to make this bold, and I'm going to call it what this is. This is country. I hate that they don't capitalize it. This is infant mortality in 1960. There you go. And then just like I did last time, I did it without even thinking about it. I move my cursor up to between the A and B, so it turns into that double-sided arrow, and I double-click, and then it makes them nice and look like what I want. Okay, now these are actually not in my project. So far, I actually haven't done anything good because I don't want to save these. What I want is to copy and paste all of this. So I'm going to highlight all of these data points, right, all the way down to Zimbabwe. The whole thing from A1, B1, all the way down to, in my case, A195 and B195. And then I will copy. So you can hit Control and C, or you can do it up here in the Home menu. And then infant mortality is our explanatory variable. So I'm going to go to my project. And what I want is for these to be together on their own tab, because on this tab, I'm going to have all my lovely GDP stuff. So all the different tasks that you do for GDP, making your histogram, making your charts, finding your table values, etc. So down here, there's a little plus sign. So if I click on that, it's going to add a new sheet. So I can double click and call that sheet mortality versus life expectancy. There we go. And now I can paste in my values. So if I hit Control V, there it is. There's my country and my infant mortality. Again, with the columns not being the right width though. So I'm actually going to highlight both columns A and B. This will be faster. And then if I move my cursor either between the A and the B or between the B and the C, so it turns into that double pointed arrow, and I double click, it makes both columns as wide as they need to be. Nice, huh? Okay, so now I need to go get life expectancy. So let me go back and grab the life expectancy, which is over in this one. So I'm going to highlight all my life expectancies. Down, I went too far. Down to Zimbabwe. There they are. And then I Control C or hit the copy button up here, either way. And then I go to my project. I'm going to put them right next to each other and hit Control V. And then again, I'm going to double click and make it so that both of those columns are nice and wide. I didn't have to do it like that. Again, I could have highlighted both columns and then double clicked, and then that'll work. Okay, so here's where the fun begins. So we've downloaded our data sets. I'm actually going to save right now. Let me click the save button. That way I know I've got my data. I actually don't need these other spreadsheets now. They're kind of done. I could close them and not save. I don't need them anymore because I've already saved all the data in my raw spreadsheet. I'm closing down infant mortality also. If it makes you nervous, you could wait on closing those until you're sure you've got all your data. Now here's where the fun begins. Any country that is missing either one of the values needs to be deleted. But also my countries need to move. See over here, basically you have to get the two columns of numbers next to each other. And so the fact that this column here, C, is in the middle of it kind of is not good. So what I do is I cut it out of there. So I can move it like that. So what I did was I highlighted my column C. So I've got my column C. I did that by going up to the C where it turns into that downward arrow cursor, and I click on it, it highlights the whole column. And then if you get kind of near the edge of that column, it turns into your cursor turns into like this four-pointed star, north, south, east, west. If I hold down my left mouse button and drag it over to the right, it will drag the whole column to the right. So that's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is just hold that column, hit Control X or cut up here in the home menu, and then go over here to E and paste. That's fine. And then you actually want to get rid of D, or excuse me, column C, this empty column in between. You want the two number columns to be right next to each other. It helps later on with stuff. So just do that now, move the country over. So that way you've got your country for your infant mortality. And if you like, you can color these differently so you can see they're actually two different variables. So this is the infant mortality side. This is the life expectancy side. But I have to put the two number parts together. It just makes things work better. All right. Well, you don't have to, but it's just easier if you do. Let's put it that way. I can already hear some person that's really good at Excel saying you don't have to, which is true, but it just makes things easier. All right, now, as I was saying, any country that doesn't have both sets of numbers needs to go away. So look at Andorra. See how it doesn't have both numbers? I click on that row, like number 5, I right-click, and I delete it. Now, Antigua and Barbuda have one number for life expectancy, but are missing the infant mortality. Needs to go. Right-click, delete. You have to have both numbers and the countries have to line up. It has to be Argentina, Argentina. Oop, Armenia is missing, so right click, delete. Azerbaijan, right click, delete. So, and then make sure all your countries are lining up nice and beautiful. Barbados is beautiful. Belarus is missing numbers, so I'll delete it. Belize is missing numbers, delete. And you just go through the whole table like this, and you get rid of every country that doesn't have more than, or doesn't have both numbers. It's no good to have one. It's got to have both. If it doesn't have both, like Chad or Cape Verde right here, you get rid of them. Oh, and I'm doing this by, I hold down 26, I click on 26, and then I hold down my control button and I click on 28. And then Djibouti down here, I can click on 42, and then these two as well. And then I can see all of those rows need to get deleted. So if I right click on the shaded rows, don't right click on the white part, right click on one of these gray shaded zones, and then click delete, it'll make all of them disappear. Both Google Spreadsheet and Excel can do that. So it's called, I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically they're non-consecutive row deletion. So the rows don't have to be next to each other if you hold down the control button. The only danger is if you accidentally click on one too many, and then you have to start all over again, which is kind of annoying. But there you go. So I just hold down and get rid of anything that is missing on either side. This particular data set, it's more missing on the left side than the right. But there are a couple countries that have, right here, look at Malta. Uh-oh, and we're in trouble. They don't match. Look here, Lesotho, Liberia, fine, Libya. Uh-oh, right there. See that Lithuania right here? How it's not maxing with Luxembourg? So what you do, highlight Lithuania, because we don't have a Lithuania on the other side. Just highlight Lithuania and its number. Right-click, delete. And it's going to ask you, how do you want to shift those cells? Well, I want the Luxembourg that's down here to shift up. So I want the cells to shift up. So shift cells up is what I want. So I'll click OK. And there, now Luxembourg is matching. Macedonia is matching. Madagascar. You've got to double check that every once in a while and make sure that the countries match. See how the Marshall Islands is missing the one on the right? It's unusual, but we're going to delete it just the same. Got to have both numbers. If it doesn't have either the left or the right or both, you get rid of them. And that's it. It's tedious, but it will get done. It just takes time. We don't have that many more to go, right? Palau is gone. I'm getting to the R's. So it just takes a few minutes. It's just tedious. And just be careful with it. You just want to make sure all your countries are lining up. Oh, and we're not. Look. We're not lining up down here. So Serbia, Slovakia, we've got problems, right? We lost it. So Palestine, Pakistan, right there. Norway, right there. We're in trouble here. Mauritania matches, Mauritius matches, Mexico matches. Oh, we're missing. There's Morocco, but the other side doesn't have a Morocco. So right-click, delete, and shift those cells up. Now Mozambique matches, Myanmar, Namibia, Nepal. Oop, Netherlands. I don't have a Netherlands over here. So I'm going to hold down on Netherlands and delete it. Right, you got to get all those countries lined up. Nigeria is not the same as Niger, so I'm going to right-click on Niger and delete that side. So it could happen on the right or the left. North Korea doesn't have data over on the other side, so I right-click and delete. Norway, no good. Oman is okay. Pakistan, there we go. Panama. Panama needs to match with Panama, so I need to delete Palestine right here. There's Panama. So now Panama matches with Panama. Papua New Guinea and Paraguay don't have anything over here, so I'm going to right-click on those and delete them. So Peru, Philippines, Poland, Qatar. Oh, Romania's with Romania, Russia with Russia. We're doing good. But Russia has no data, so let me delete it. All right, delete Russia. And then, yeah, we get a lot of weird countries down here. So Samoa's fine, but San Marino, I don't have anybody. Sao Tome is right here, so I'm going to delete my San Marino. Now I've got Sao Tome matched with Sao Tome, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Serbia. But Serbia has no data, so I'm going to get rid of that one. Seychelles, Sierra Leone, Singapore, Slovak. Right? You just slowly go through it. Be very careful. Oh, and here, it's all of these Caribbean islands. They get different names and stuff, and so it gets confusing. So Sri Lanka matches with Sri Lanka. All of these ones can kind of go away, but Sudan actually has numbers on both sides. So I really need these three to go away. So I'm going to get rid of them. I'm going to shift the cells up. but I also need these two to go away. So I'm going to shift those cells up. So now I've got Sudan matching with Sudan. And of course, your data set might be a little bit different than this, so you just got to be careful. And as you go through and make sure all your countries are lining up and all of your blanks are getting deleted. I'm going to pause you and finish this out real quick. Actually, be super careful. So you can see here Turkmenistan doesn't have data, so I'm going to delete. Tuvalu here doesn't have data, but Uganda does. So it's really tempting to like click on the row and make it go away, but I shouldn't. I should just delete Tuvalu. That way Uganda and Uganda can match up with each other because I have data for both sides of that. So that's only fair. Uzbekistan. And there we go. So I'm just making sure all my countries match, and they do. Lovely. Beautiful. So now I have all my data. Let me double check with the project sheet. All right, so we've located and downloaded our data spreadsheets. Wonderful. Now, don't worry about this stuff. I'm actually going to get rid of this for future because they no longer do that. So they're gone. It's the about stuff is basically helping you with your analysis. So let me just show you where that is real quick. It's this stuff right here when they describe it. That's something you just want to pay attention to. So the life expectancy was the average number of years a newborn child would live if the current patterns remain the same. And then if I click on this and go back to, what was it, infant mortality? Infant mortality, there it is. And it tells you in the description, that's the about part. That's what you need in order to be able to analyze it. So just kind of write it down for yourself. The deaths of children during the first year of life per 1,000 live births, right? So how many deaths are there per 1,000 births? That's the infant mortality rate. So that was just what the about part was about. So I might add that in for future just to say, you know, hey, write it down what it was about. But there you have it. All right, so back to the project. So we won't worry about this right now because we don't have the tabs. It wouldn't be a bad idea to write it down somewhere, you know, infant mortality was this, life expectancy was this, kind of write the description. Or heck, I bet you could even copy and paste them from here somewhere, right? Actually, it looks like you can't, but you could definitely type it again. And then we did this. We called it, actually, we called it mortality versus life expectancy. Why not? Did that. And then we considered only our year. We got rid of everything other than our year. We copied and pasted everything in. We renamed our columns with appropriate labels. That's the whole, when we downloaded the spreadsheet originally, it just calls them both 1960, these two, life expectancy and infant mortality. Infant mortality here, life expectancy here. So 1960 doesn't do us any good. That's why we had to write in, this was infant mortality here, this is life expectancy here, just to keep track of things. That's all we mean by that. And then we resized the columns, renamed the columns, made everything clear. I even colored them to kind of make it clear. And then we just finished this. We made sure all of our countries align, so everything looks nice and everything's going together. So we're done with that bit.